I don't trust you.
I don't trust me either. It's fine. The delay is killing us, but we are live. As far as I can tell, baby, we are live.
We're just gonna.
Episode 60.
I know. We're just gonna go with it. we're gonna.
Go
We're
with
gonna
it.
go, we're gonna go with it. We're gonna look back later and we're like, damn it, it didn't
Yeah,
work.
it didn't work at all.
Anyways, guys, if you are here, guys, welcome. Yeah, this is episode 60. Ryan, what have you been playing
Well, I mean, actually, I just played Requisition today, of all things. It comes out
today?
tomorrow.
Today,
Today?
today.
Okay, today or tomorrow, one of
And I
those
was supposed
days.
to have a video up today. It's gonna be a tomorrow thing.
Poor. I dabbled. It's pretty cool. If you guys saw the trailer for that game, it's kind of like it's a zombie survival game, but you can like literally grab any household item and like turn into a weapon, and you can make the most crazy, bizarre, nutty weapons out there. It's cool. It's fun. It's in early access. You can definitely tell there's some work to be done there, but it's got potential, especially for those who really like the whole zombie like the Call of Duty zombie survival kind of thing. This has more depth than any other VR version of that game, I guess. So yeah, I mean it's not Saints and Sinners in regards to as far as the campaign goes. It's single player or multiplayer survival. Um, you can play deathmatch. I haven't played that yet, but it's got from what I've only played like an hour. I see a lot of potential. It's the
Yeah,
best I got. Potential.
and I haven't played it yet. I haven't played. I'm excited to play it. Looking at the video of it, it's got more than a little Saints and Sinners vibe to it. At least as far as like some of the looks like some of the choices they've gone to with inventory and such. But like talking to you, it looks like it's very much like a horde mode kind of game, and
Yeah,
it'll be curious to see if that's all it becomes, or if they decide to like take what they have and run with it. And I kind
like
of
I
hope
said,
they
it's
do.
early access, so I mean, they plan on doing a lot more. I'm not sure exactly how much, but it's very much a mix. It's a mix of like campaign, like you're not just thrown into a map. You're actually given tasks, so it's like
Mm.
you have to go there and build X number of traps and fortify his defenses. And once you do these things, then the waves kind of hit. So there's like a little bit of missions behind it. But like when I played so far, they're pretty basic. But there's yeah, I don't know. It's all right.
Everyone's gonna say that it's like I think everyone's gonna want to compare it to a VR title, but I think that from what my understanding is, and guys, keep an eye on the channel tomorrow because I'll do a pretty good rundown of my thoughts of the early access tomorrow and cause a little bit of havoc. It looks like Dead Rising,
Very much.
which
I
is
mean,
a
you can
flat
see the
game.
inspiration behind Dead Rising. There's absolutely Dead Rising inspiration there. Very,
And
very,
Dead
very much
Rising
so.
had very little point to it other than kind of like get here, do this, but it really was like that was not what it was about. It was just like bullshit reasons to get you going.
Yeah, yeah. That's kind of the same thing. I don't know. There's that wacky funness. I mean, the guys are making some crazy like shoving a lamp onto like a pole and then like electrifying it, turning into like a shocker. Like, it was just there's some like I think once you kind of learn that you can find recipes and stuff like that. I think once you learn the nuances of the game, I think there's like a lot of way more than what I was initially. I was like knife on bat. And I walk over and this guy's got a leaf blower with a flamethrower. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing just yet. So there's definitely room to figure things out. What
I'm
about you,
excited.
Chris?
I'm
What
excited
about
to play.
you?
Well,
What
I
do you?
mean, I just got back in town, which you know, but maybe not people watching knows. And so I'm looking forward to playing a lot more VR. Not that I couldn't play VR out and about once I got the gaming laptop and such, but I was just usually tired at the end of the day and just not. And we were doing a lot of work getting the channel combination relaunch kind of done. So what do I got going on here? Not a lot. I mean, I'm going to play Requisition tomorrow, and I got my new Bobo head strap because my old head strap broke. So I'm excited to play with that. So far, it feels awesome. I was saying to Ryan, cannot believe that Meta or Oculus or whatever you want to call them has not made that the elite strap, something with this design, because like for us PlayStation guys, this is the way to go. This is how it should be. Like, like get the weight off the face. It's brilliant. It's like so much more comfortable. Oh my god.
Got to keep the cost of the headset down. That's where
I
they do it.
don't Come on. You know this is coming from China and it probably costs them like 30 cents to make.
Yeah, well, the head strap only costs 10 cents for Oculus.
If
I
But no, I'm looking forward to playing some games. We've got some games coming up that we're reviewing. I guess we can't really talk too much about that. Um,
Can't.
yeah, I mean, you guys know that Iron Man's coming. Gonna be playing some Iron Man. Iron Guard's coming up. Gonna be playing some Iron Guard. And it's still pretty quiet though. Like it's the end of October, man.
Dude, we're gonna get hit so hard, man. I mean, they're like I said, going back to that MetaConnect thing, and all the games that were announced then, all those games on the MetaConnect were announced for 2022, and I'm sure maybe one or two have been delayed, but there's still a swath of them coming. That I mean, because of VR, we get no notice. I mean, Iron Man 3 or Iron Man for Quest, we found out about that a week ago. Like this shouldn't. Why don't we get bigger support? Like let us know months in advance. I mean, Jesus, God
Oh,
of
it
War
drives me nuts.
Ragnarok. We've known about that for like 2 years. You get, these big releases for Quest, we find out a week in advance. And it's like I get the surprise factor, but when it's a surprise every goddamn time, it just gets old.
Well, when you're doing things like dropping like Bone Lab, like ta-da, it's out in a week. It's like, okay, I don't get that. The
Well,
marketing
they
guy
didn't do
in
that
me.
to Bone Lab, though.
Yeah,
Bone
they
Lab
did.
had that. No, they announced it wait months and months and months ago, you dummy.
Oh, we knew it was coming, but they
Oh,
were
I see
just
what you're
like,
saying.
we're like, boom, it's coming out this week. It was like, oh my god, like the biggest release of the year probably for VR, and they just like just I don't know. Marketing wise, it doesn't make any sense to me, and I really want to know what the thought is behind that, if that actually works for them. Obviously, they made a lot of money, but it's one of those things where it's like, would they have made more money? I don't know. It just seems it just seems counterintuitive to me to just drop a game like that. It's one of the reasons I'm looking forward to Sony getting back in the game because Sony just won't do that with their big games. That's just not how they like. They're too console. I think.
Speaking of Sony, Chris, should we get to today's episode topic? Because there's a segue right there that I don't want to pass
I
up.
know. I know. I had that in the back of my head.
Today, what's our topic, Chris? Tell us our topic.
Today's topic, boys and girls, we want to talk PSVR 2. Ryan and I, we've been out of the game kind of like as far as the Virtual Boys podcast has gone. We just weren't like as with all the PSVR 2 stuff that's been kind of dropping. We were kind of on a bit of a hiatus while we were getting everything like launched and ready to go, right? So for you and I, Ryan, it's we haven't been able to comment on a lot of the stuff that's kind of been dropping as far as like uh games that have been announced and I guess like things that we've seen a little bit more for hardware wise and Sony dropping a trailer, an official trailer for the headset. And so we wanted to, really weigh in hard on that, right? And not just do a top 10 games we're excited for. We want to like get into the weeds here and really discuss what PSVR 2 is going to look like in like the next year because it's not a just about launch. It has nothing to do with launch because half the people that want one still probably aren't going to get one or they won't have a PS5. And so what is Sony's plan over the year? And that's what I wanted to talk about with you is kind of what you think Sony needs to do over the course of a year. Because I was thinking about it today and I'm curious to see what you think about this. Let me ask you this. Do you consider the PlayStation VR 1 a success?
Yes. um, but it's got like four or five asterisks behind it. I mean, it was this, a VR headset console market. Um, and VR to me, it's VR wasn't there yet. It just comes, looking back over 6 years ago, despite what we can say about the games we've loved and the amazing experiences we've had, as far as mass market consumption goes, it's pretty clear that VR wasn't there yet, especially the PSVR, move controllers and tracking and everything else. It was a great first experiment. I think that's where it's a success. I think it showed that VR is so close to being there. Compared to even like 10 years ago, the stuff you saw in malls or that kind of stuff. Like, this was in your home VR. And whether it's, PSVR or any other headset, it showed that it could work. It's just the tech wasn't there yet, right? I mean, the fact they used the move controllers was an awful choice that they stuck with. And it just, the headset, because of that, the headset just aged out so fast. And obviously the power of the PS4 and blah, 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 blah. But to your original point, success, I definitely think it's a success. I think it showed a lot of potential, but it also, I think it also paved the way for, well, obviously the Oculus Quest or Meta Quest, whatever. And more importantly, it paved the way for PSVR 2. And I think there's a lot more eyes on PSVR 2 from people who didn't care about VR now, who are just like, maybe it's time. When they're announcing Resident Evil 8s and No Man's Sky and, you know, uh, now I'm blanking on all my trailers. It's hilarious. But even the Star Wars stuff, like even the games they've announced officially, Horizon, there you go, these are, Horizon especially, I guess, really, like, Horizon's a big deal, and bringing that to VR, even though it's not the actual Horizon experience, it still catches your eye, which is going to come back to our topics to, like, what does PSVR 2 need to do? But like, big name franchise, and now that they're going to be bringing that to PSVR 2, it kind of makes me excited, because that's the one thing we bitched about in the PSVR 1, is that we never saw those big franchises come to VR. Not really, not anything official, other than like 5-minute tie-ins, or like, 30-minute, experiences. And so, as much as we cried foul about that, this is kind of like the round two of that. So I mean, I'm optimistic that this time around, all of our whinings will, hopefully have been heard, and we will see. I know we're getting Call of Duty one stage in VR. Hopefully we'll see more of that. Hopefully someone decides to, Battlefield, whatever, 5, 6, whatever held number on that's in VR. Who, I mean, that's optimistic, but I'm really hoping that that'll happen, especially with this whole hybrid word floating around there.
Yeah. Well, the reason I asked you if you thought it was a success is I think that that has a lot to do with where Sony feels they need to go with the second one in basically, as far as, do they repeat past successes, past failures? And that was what I was starting to think about. I was like, do I think it's a success? Yes, I think it was a success. It was not a runaway success, and it's an interesting thing, because when Sony first created the PSVR 1, it wasn't even to ship it into production. It was a prototype, and that's all it was ever supposed to be. They, like, were literally using, like, existing tech from the Move, like the Move controllers and such from the PS3 era, and it was like, "Damn, this is actually pretty cool." And they decided to put it into production, and I think that when they decided to do that, then they had really ambitious expectations, which would be, I'm just going to talk to the chair, which would be, evidenced in the fact that the the games that they announced, like, it was like, oh my god, everything's coming to PSVR. Now that was a combination of, I think, them thinking that the money would be there, like the units sold would justify the expense. I mean, one of those examples might be Ace Combat. I mean, it could be a possible. I mean, it's a possibility that some of those missions, to do the whole game in VR, just wasn't going to work. But a lot of it was they figured out they had to, like, rebuild the whole game to make it work in VR. They rebuilt those levels entirely to make them, like, work. It's not a matter of just flip VR. It's like
Yeah.
complete redesign and optimization from the ground up. And I don't think the money was there. Like, the headsets, they weren't going to make the money back to do the whole game that way, and I think they decided to deliver a taste of what they wanted to do, and that was years later. Now, again, back to this, I think it's a success. We're getting PSVR 2, you know? Like, so was it a success? Obviously, it was a success enough to keep going forward. And we've talked about in the past, the way I look at it is that the PSVR did so much heavy lifting for the VR industry to the masses, right? Because the Gear VR and stuff, that just wasn't real VR. That wasn't, no, no. And PC VR had some awesomeness, but there was a huge barrier to entry with price that's still there. That's not going away. And so console VR was this amazing middle ground that Sony tried to really capitalize on. And like you said, the tech maybe wasn't quite, it was, what they pulled off was amazing, but the tech had a lot of deficiencies right out of the door,
Like I
which
say, I think it's just proof of concept. Really, only we weren't, at the time, it wasn't necessarily looking for proof of concept, but that's what it ended up being, I suppose,
now
in a way.
where I'm going with this is, like, okay, is it a success? Is it not a success? It probably depends on who you talk to at Sony. Like, they're obviously making a second one. I'm gonna guess this one needs to do the numbers that I think that they were probably hoping for. That it's probably more in line right now with expectations are a little bit more um, realistic, I guess. But the fact is that what I'm trying to set the stage for is it's like, okay, PSVR 2, what should Sony do differently? Like we're gonna get into the games. Obviously, we're gonna get in the games. We're gonna get into all those things. But it's like, but in the I guess the more macro view, it's like, what does Sony need to do? Like one of the things, like because there's a lot of things that think that Sony did really really well that no one else is like. I guess Meta's kind of done it, but like Sony rocked it hard with ads in the beginning. That first year, especially like, and especially year one, two. Like I'm thinking like into like Firewall and Farpoint and
Skyrim VR, and yeah, oh yeah, for sure
but
there
right,
was
they
lots
went
of ads.
hard with ads and they
Yep.
really pumped the VR up. They're not really doing that right now. Now it's might be too early for that. Right, but we're still like, how many times have you and I complained about? Oh my god, they just revealed it in a blog post. And then
Yep.
we go back to the conversation that even you and I have talked about, that I knew a guy who worked for the PSVR side of things, and he was responsible for the big blowout that they did on one of the state of plays when they announced No Man's Sky, and he talked about the amount of pushback that they got from the fans. And basically, as soon as that happened, Sony told his team, "All right, shut up. We're tightening up." Like, people are pushing back too hard. Like they're not ready for that. They feel betrayed. And so to me it was kind of like, okay, I think I see a little bit of that hesitance still in their unveiling plans, and that's fine. It's all up for conjecture before it launches. But when it launches, I think Sony needs to go hard on the marketing trail. This is the
I mean,
thing.
I can't disagree with that at all. Of course, they need to advertise.
Well, but I mean, a lot of VR games don't, you know, and Meta does. They've done a half decent job of it, but it's like, I think like, but you're still, but the difference is that Meta's trying to be a VR headset to in a like to a VR community, if you know what I mean, right?
Hmm.
Like, yeah, obviously they're trying to get the masses in there, but Sony's got a bigger problem ahead of them because they're trying to talk VR to the flat gaming masses. Like they're trying to talk to console owners. Meta doesn't have that problem. They're trying to sell you the console.
Yeah, for sure.
So I
Um,
don't know. It's just, I'm just saying that there are issues down the road that Sony's going to have to address, and there's that one big problem that that Sony and Meta and Valve and whoever else in the game, HTC, I mean, another facial tracker, but it's like they all have not yet really cracked the, how do you get people excited about VR from commercials without putting
no,
it on people's heads.
no, and that, I mean, that's just, I mean, like I said, it comes down to me, like I said, having more franchises. Horizon's not enough, um, but Horizon's definitely a good start. Saints and Sinners, that really is only for the VR enthusiasts. Outside of VR, no one cares about Saints and Sinners. They should, but they don't.
I disagree with that.
I don't know about that
Saints
one,
and
man.
Sinners pulled a lot of people to VR.
I mean,
I think there's a lot of people who saw that, they're like, "Oh, yeah, actually, I
I
know
guess
that."
maybe for the Quest, because I mean, like I said, the Saints when Saints came out, it's not like people were in droves buying PlayStation VR headsets. I mean, so I
Well,
wonder, how much it pulled. I
I mean, I
really,
don't know. I mean, were they? That's a tough one though, because the PSVR was also starting to get into its later
well,
years.
that's what I'm saying.
But I know a lot of buddies with kids who would come over to try my like VR at my place, and they were like, "Do you have Saints and Sinners?" Like, I know, I had a nephew of a buddy who's like, 21 years old, and when he came over to try my various VR stuff, and that was like the first thing he's like, "Oh man, I've been watching so many videos. Do you have Saints and Sinners?" Like, it was up there with Half-Life Alex as far as like awareness of VR. It's what the gamers wanted to try. The non-gamers like, "Oh my god, do you have Beat Saber? Oh!" But the people who were like gamers, Saints and Sinners was on there. That was like, fuck yeah. It looked cool. It looked cool enough to like need
Okay.
to try it.
I'm not fighting you in this one. It's not worth it. um, but going back to the topic at hand in needs, and I totally agree with the whole advertising and getting the message out there. How they do that in regards to getting people interested in VR in general, other than like franchises, I'm not quite sure. That's a job for Sony to figure out. I mean, obviously putting kiosks and stuff back in malls would be a great start, I think. Again, but one of the things I wanted to get switched to is the price point, which is we still don't know. And this is PSVR needs to make sure they don't screw that up. And they have wiggle room now thanks to Oculus's price hike. But I have to
Really?
assume that,
I guess.
I mean, a little bit, but I have to assume even still that, I mean, they can't, it can't come in more than a Quest by itself when you factor in the cost, the cost of a PS5 on top of that. So they have to really come in hot with that price or make some kind of sick bundle at launch that warrants what could be, a headset that costs, I mean, like $400 US. Like, how much is a PS5 in American?
I don't know.
500.
I'm so messed up by by Canadian dollars now.
Yeah, no, it's not good. But anyways, point still stands. They have to come in with a good price, and I mean, it's key. It'll
500.
be. Yeah, so 500 US. So I mean, it has to be less than that. And honestly, like I used to be of the mindset like as long as they came in at the same price, it'd be okay. But the more I'm thinking about it, the more I think just because you have to get a PS5 as well, it's got to be $400 or less. I mean, magic number I guess would be like 350 American, but just because obviously, even though the PSVR2 hardware has stuff inside with the whole eye tracking, everything else in there, but a bulk of the load is still happening on the PS5. So to me, that's kind of where the cost should be sunk into more than the headset. I
You're
don't know.
right. I mean, you're right. That's it's a tough one because I understand what you're saying. It's like they're not just selling a headset, they're also selling a console, so maybe they can spread around some of the cost. But it's like we already know that Sony's pretty much selling the PSVR or the PS5 at cost. I mean, that's a lot of there's a lot of tech in the PS5 and the Series X for the price that they're selling. Like it's insane, really. I mean, it's got like a basically like a 2070 or I guess I don't know what you would call it, like a 3060 if you want to talk, and basically and it's like and that's like that's just part of it. I'm just saying it's a tough one. Price point's brutal. Like it's like there's what I think it needs to go for and there's what I think that like Sony has to sell it for. If I had to guess, I would say 499 US, but I could see 599 US.
More expensive than the PS5.
Yes.
That's to me that's a
I
killer.
know. I know. I agree.
But I mean, this isn't really. I mean, I'm debating this, but so much as I mean,
What was the PSVR at launch?
expensive as hell. But that's in Canadian dollars.
I know. I know.
I paid like $800 when I walked out of Walmart, and that was the PSVR bundle with Worlds and the moves, and I bought rigs and Rush of Blood. It was ridiculous. I don't. I just to me that's too expensive. I think that'll be. Oh shoot. That'll be something that the competition will attack, right? I mean,
Well,
it like the Quest. You can sit there and say like, look at what PSVR can do compared to Quest, but when the cost is also jacked up higher, and you need a PS5 too, like it's not great.
they're saying I see $400 US. Now, I remember they sold it bare as well without the controllers and the camera and such, but I think that that's probably the pack. So, I mean, but that was in 2016, man. Like that's $400 then. I don't know. I'm just saying. It's a tough one. They're in a tough position to sell
I
the
agree.
PS.
I agree. It's definitely. I definitely agree with that. It is tough. I mean, how do you find that point to invite new players? I mean, obviously the hardcores will buy it. I mean, PSVR users have been waiting for 2 years more for this headset, so an extra $100 for the hardcores means nothing. shouldn't say nothing, but like hardcores are gonna get it. No one's gonna be like, well, $400, sure, $500, screw you, Sony. Like no, like the Sony guys, the fanboys who are still riding the PSVR headset, they will pay. Let's say whatever, but
Well,
I
of course
mean,
we will. That's the thing, right?
yeah,
Geisen confirmed their $500 for the headset. Uh, it was for the bundle.
right.
400 was at launch. I know Kevin says that it won't be. He doesn't think the price being high won't really matter because people don't have PS5s.
That's going away. I know it hasn't happened yet, but I'm seeing more and more stories online, unless it's some clever advertising by Sony. There were people saying, I found it. Like, I've been to Walmart and I'm seeing PS5s. I'm seeing more and more of those stories of people finding them in the wild, a lot more than I'm seeing, still can't get one. I hate Sony. Blah, blah, blah. So I
I
think it's coming to an end. I'm not sure when that end is. I mean, hopefully by Christmas, but that's only 2 months away. So,
Well, here's how I look at it. I would say that just about anybody who wants a PSVR 2 at launch is probably a pretty hardcore gamer, probably a pretty hardcore PlayStation guy. And I think that anybody who really wanted to get a PS5 has a PS5. I mean, and I say
mhm.
really really want one to put in like a little bit of effort to get on a pre-order list. That's like minimum effort, you know? Like to just like be waiting to find one in the stores. Yeah, like it's just like that's not the world we live in. And Sony was very very bullish about not wanting, lineups in stores either. So they weren't in a rush to get them flooding into stores either, right? With COVID and everything. So I feel like I don't think Sony's gonna let the availability of PS5s or lack of PS5s dictate the price on the headset. Like they're gonna have a number that it has to be
Oh, no, for sure. I don't think that matters.
because they're gonna look at it as two completely individual IPs. Like we gotta push. I mean, obviously they don't want to get bottlenecked by PS5s. That's a problem. I mean, they know that's a problem. That's why we don't have a PSVR 2 in our hands right now. Like
Yeah.
they delayed that thing. Like I think it was supposed to be out this fall. Definitely supposed to be out this fall.
No
And
one knew that for sure, though.
no, but I think that if you listen to enough developers and such, it was definitely a moving target due to chip shortages and PS5 shortages. Blah. But
Your
anyways,
chips are short. What's another need, Chris? What's another need? I've got a whole list here, so.
oh yeah, I mean they're all needs. They're all need. I think that we'll get into games. We'll definitely get into games. I think games will probably be what we end up spending a lot of time on, just because games are going to be, I think, what really helps to convince people that the PSVR 2 is like something serious because I had so many friends that came over and were really impressed with my PSVR, right? But then they'd say, it's not there yet. It wasn't cool enough. Like even Firewall. I had friends who were like, it's cool, but like they didn't have two hands. They weren't reloading things. It was slow to move. It was a little blurry. Uh, matchmaking was a bit of a pain in the ass. Like it just like it wasn't there yet for the picky people, and that's the problem. It's an expectations game, and that is, I think, I want to get into that. Maybe we'll close off with that, but I think that's going to be Sony's biggest problem. But we'll get into that at the end. My need that I'll bring up right here is um, not hardware, not games. It's apps. I think Sony needs to one thing they did really poorly on the PSVR side of things is embracing social apps because that's where VR is huge. Like, yeah, they got Rec Room. Okay, fine, they got Rec Room, but they need VR chat, they need Neos, they need big screen, and they need them at launch.
Yeah, I agree for at least especially the social ones. I mean, and if it's not big screen, then they need a comparative one because PS4's offerings were embarrassing.
I don't, I,
Um,
I don't think it's even a compared one, sure, but I think they need that cross-platform.
I agree. But I could also see them trying to go their own way too, just to try to like throw their own Sony library in there as like a additional like paid for service. I'm not sure. I mean, I know big screen you can pay for stuff in there too. But you're not wrong. I mean, they definitely need to increase their social presence in regard to these apps. And like you said, crossplay for sure. No one wants to get a game or a game really or app that like you can only play with your Sony friends when the Quest is still the most popular headset out there. They definitely got to be friendly with Oculus. Luckily, we've seen them be friendly in the past as far as trading games and whatnot. So I think I mean you're not wrong. I can't see them not doing that.
Oh,
Um,
this proprietary tribal shit needs to go away, especially in the VR world. Like when we're watching Ready Player One, at no point was some guy like, "Hey man, you want to come join me in the fucking metaverse?" And the guy was like, actually, I'm on a different headset." And like, no, it's just like, I don't know. Especially the social stuff. It's the social stuff. Games is one thing, fine, whatever. You want to play that shit, that game, Sony or whoever else, fine. I don't agree with it. I think we just need anything multiplayer needs numbers, and we just need to all be one big happy family. But big screen might be an issue because there's a lot of illegal shit going on in there. It's big screen's a tough one on PlayStation because at least most of the people that I know who use big screen, that's like ripped movies and ripped
Oh yeah.
TV shows that they've gotten off of like Pirate Bay or whatever, and then they boot them up and they play them, for their friends and such, and they're doing that off a computer. I'm not saying that the PlayStation can't do that. I could just see Sony being very difficult about that.
For sure.
So that's another problem. I think, but VR chat, Neos, Rec Room, obviously, they just need those things. They need them
I mean,
because
Neos won't happen. That's a pipe dream.
I disagree.
Um, not on Sony, on PlayStation. There's no way.
Why?
Because it's too good. As bad as that sounds, it's the most proper representation of the metaverse, and that's why. It comes, and the fact that Neos has NFT stuff and all the they do. It's not just like money going to Sony. There is like some Bitcoin. I can't think of the term. What is Bitcoin?
NFTs?
Well, NFTs work too, but it's a lot of stuff.
Is that
I don't
where
know
you're
if
going
Sony.
with
No,
that?
no,
NFT is what you're thinking of.
no. What is Bitcoin? Like, what is Ethereum? Like, what are all these different coins? What's that called?
That's Bitcoin.
No, Bitcoin is a type of
Cryptocurrency.
cryptocurrency. Thank you. I don't know why- I was blanking. I couldn't think of it. But I don't think Sony wants to muddy their reputation by being involved with that stuff. It's messy. It's messy. NFTs and crypto is messy, especially if you're not at all involved in that kind of stuff. Then it's really confusing and weird. And not to say Neos thrives on that stuff, but it's there. And I don't think Sony wants to be like, well, let me explain NFTs and cryptocurrency to you, fucking 11-year-old who's using Neos. It just doesn't make sense.
I guess, but do they? I mean, it's like, but do they have to? I mean, it's just like, here, it's available. We're
But
making
it's
it
guilt by
available.
association, man. And NFTs are getting, dragged through the mud right now. Understandably so, in my personal opinion. It's just messy. I'm not gonna. It's just messy, Chris, and that's why it won't be there.
I think what we're starting to touch base on is what Ryan does in Neos, and it's messy.
It's messy. It's messy.
I mean, I won't. I can't agree or disagree with you. I don't spend enough time in these social apps. I'm sure we could get someone on here that'd be like, "You're crazy. You're crazy." But VR chat obviously is like the big mainstream one, right? So, um, Kevin's like, "Crypto makes Neos too good." No, Ryan's just
No,
not excited.
that's a mixed message there. The crypto doesn't make it good, but Neos is the closest representation of like Ready Player One that we have right now. Other than I guess kind of VR chat in its own way, but the crypto side of it does make things messy. It's kind of the two separate points that got combined there, Kevin. That's my fault.
I mean, you could say that Neos is too. When you say too good, I would say it's probably too uninhibited. Like they adopt.
Like that's how it should be, though.
They adopt, yeah, but they adopt everything, right? Like I'd heard. Again, I'm not a huge social app guy, but I know that Neos, has adopted all of the, anything peripherals. Like any tracking you have at her.
Oh yeah.
Like penis tracking, it's in there.
I don't think that's a thing, but
if it was a thing, it would be in there, and it would be in Neos. So I think that like that's just a huge thing that Sony has not embraced, and it's a huge thing that they need to jump onto. I think, dude,
making faces.
Social VR is
No, okay,
like
you're about social VR. Yeah,
from a
no,
number thing.
I thought you were talking about like crypto and stuff. Sorry.
No, no, just get off
like,
me, you
what?
dirty bastard.
No, so I already agree with you. Yes, I agree with you on social VR. Don't defend it because I'm agreeing with you. Don't defend it.
One more thing. Speaking of dirty bastards, they need to get a browser in there.
Yeah, it's on my list. It's on my list.
Day one, they need a browser in there. And I'm not talking about Googling cat videos. I'm saying porn.
And there's no reason for it now not to happen. I mean, no offense. I'm not sure why I said that. But like, on the Oculus Store or Meta Store, whatever, you can like even their own baked in browser works for that. You can download Firefox. You can download like there's like two other browsers I think on there that all work for VR 180 videos or 360 videos outside of porn even. Like all these things do read and do that. There is no reason why if Sony doesn't build that into their own browser that Firefox can't just have that ready to go unless Sony decides to be dicks. And that's a really stupid decision on their part because porn sells. It's just that simple, and VR porn will sell. It'll move headsets. I mean, it just will, especially if the headset also plays a ton of the best VR games on the market.
Yeah, they just need to take it to the next level and put like a Pornhub app right in the fucking app.
I don't think I don't think that will happen.
Experience the best porn has to offer. Boom, right there. No, but a browser. That's all I need to do. It's a browser. It's like it's pretty much they might as well just call it the Pornhub app. Yes, and I think they don't need to do anything more than just put a browser in there. What else
Yeah.
you got?
No, I
What else?
agree.
What else you got? Porn. It's all
Actually, a
about
lot
porn.
of stuff really got tied into games, so I'm gonna push it back till we're done with the non-gaming stuff. So the one thing,
Hang on, before
so
you move on to that, there's some people talking about whether Sony should make their own like Horizon Worlds or like,
no,
bring back the
straight up
PlayStation
no.
Home.
PlayStation Home is the best idea out of any of those things because making one brand new is just we're watching Meta throw billions at their ridiculous horizons, and I don't expect Sony to do any better of a job. Honestly, they might have a better idea of what to do, but it's just no. Like let someone else do the dirty work and just like be friends with them. Let VR chat do its thing. Everyone work together. Don't try to make yet another Worlds. I have to play Rec Room or Worlds or VR Chat or Sony Home. I don't want to jump from social app to social app to social app. Like let's find the one or two kings and just put our efforts into that because having 50 of them right now is just stupid.
Let Rec Room be the daycare for the kiddies and age lock the shit out of VR chat and make it the go-to. Like 16 and up.
For
But
now,
no,
and that's just for now. I think once the metaverse establishes itself a bit more, I hate describing it like this, but once like there is actually a clear like goal, a clear like a parity between VR chat and Rec Room, as weird as that sounds, is someone's just going to wait where that can happen, where you can transfer from VR chat to Rec Room, and your avatar not like it might carry over and change to the game. But when that kind of stuff happens, then we can start looking at more and more of these things when they all work together. But with all of them all working separately, it's just we don't need any more of them. Like everyone's already fighting over what's good as it is now, and no one's coming up with anything better. Like no one has released a killer social app in VR since
no.
other than the one. So like just
You and
let's
I
just cool
you
it.
and I talked about Sony making like what Geisen says. Like I mean it's a good idea. I mean, we talked about Sony revisiting their home. I mean, a lot of people loved that back in is that a PS3? That's a
Yeah.
PS3 thing,
Yeah.
right? And it was, and it was ahead of its time in some ways, right? And would it be I mean, on one hand, like, yeah, it'd be awesome if Sony did it. One of the things that you and I kind of brought up, and I still like this idea. I think it might have been actually it was probably me idea. But it was this idea of and this is like something that we were going to get it to anyways, is Sony, it looks like they're going to go very, very basic as far as UI goes, where it's like going to just be like the PSVR. The game shows up on your normal dashboard. You press play. You put on your headset. Ryan and I had talked about how we thought it would be a really missed opportunity for Sony not to really embrace the coolness of VR, where you went into like say a VR home space, like fucking duh. Like, but like take that the next step, where you can see that like Meta's going with this already. Is like make your home a shared space. Like if you're in a party, everyone can come hang out with you in your home space. And then you guys can discuss what you want to go play and leave from your home space. Like those are basic things that are already kind of starting to become the norm. Like when you put on your headset in if you're whether you're in Steam VR or you're in Oculus, you're up in like a kind of a home space. And
Yeah.
I just feel like Sony just doing the bare minimum, just leaving it on the dashboard and using their same party chat, which I think is just cumbersome as fuck on the PS5.
Oh yeah, it's brutal on the PS5.
Fucking brutal.
Well, I mean, they said
They could
they
do
said
more
it.
with that. But just to finish my thought, this is why it's actually thinking of this whole party chat and home space and that whole thing is one of the reasons that made me think of wanting to discuss the whole first year of the PSVR 2 launch instead of just day one. Because fine,
Mhm.
I would forgive Sony, even though I think it's a bad idea for them keeping things simple and just like launching the headset, not messing with the UI and the dashboard and everything. Because maybe there's an overhaul coming. Because a lot of people don't like the PS5 dashboard anyway. So fuck it, whatever. Fine, put it on the back burner. Just make sure everything works out the door. But over the course of a year, yeah, it's time to like you gotta, you're better than that.
Yeah, no, straight up. I mean, there's honestly no excuse for it. I mean, the best we got with Sony is this is a direct quote from the blog. In VR mode, players can enjoy VR game content in a 360 view in a virtual environment. So basically, I think it sounds like they're gonna make the UI they'll make the menu go around you, but it's still just the menu. They're just like expanding it so it's like 360. Um, it's not
they
enough
could
by any
do, they could
stretch.
do they could just do they could do better. And there's just, I don't even have to be very creative, and I can think of really cool ideas that they could do just to make that just a bare minimum. Like, just even if the fact that, like, if you were the guy setting up the party, the avatars show up in your home space, and you're like, "Hey man, what's it going?" Basic avatars, whatever. It doesn't, like, whatever. I'm just saying, like, it's the benchmark has already been set for like by Meta, like what that basic avatar system goes, and that might be something that Sony's like, yeah, okay, good, we want to do that. But
Mhm.
where right now we got a lot of stuff ahead of us, and we don't want to like just like phone in Salvador. We don't want to just like phone in some kind of a home, avatar system. We want to do that properly. Fine, good. Make Put that on your year one list though.
Yeah, for
Anyway,
sure.
okay. So I haven't talked enough. What else you got?
So all the rest of my needs are all tied to games, so I'll save these. But as far as wants
I mean,
goes, wants obviously, I mean, I do want less experiences. We kind of touched on this a little bit, but I don't want to see like, the Tomb Raider experience or the Call of Duty experience or any kind of crappy tie-in experience, the Avatar VR experience. I don't want anything. If it's not a full game, I don't want to see that stuff in there unless it's free. That's the only exception to that. If you want to promote your stuff, fine, whatever. If it's free, I can play the Avatar VR thing for 10 minutes, fine. But I don't want a $20, 30-minute Avatar game where you get to fly on the back of a whatever creature. I could just like, no, I don't want to see that. It muddies the waters. In my opinion, it lies about the content available. I mean, Call of Duty, whatever the heck that was for PS4, I'll bring it up
oh
again.
god, Vanguard.
Garbage, absolute trash. But that was in the advertising. Call of Duty, that was on like the Sony PSVR trailers. Was like Call of Duty, and it's not Call of Duty. Like, so I want them to avoid that kind of mixed messaging.
No, you're right. No, they need to curate
Mhm.
their games a little bit better, I think. I mean, that's a problem that I've had with the store to start with, and I feel like it becomes a bigger problem when you start getting into VR. It's a huge problem on the Switch in the fact that you get just so much crap. Steam VR is the same problem. And Steam's gotten better at having enough curated content to try to like push the popular games, the better stuff, to let the cream rise to the top. Sony needs to do that because like before it was just like games just they just like one of the things we talked about is I really Sony did this for on the PS4 and then they got rid of it on the PS5 was they need a PS5 a PSVR store, a curated PSVR store, like on par with something I don't even think they do a great job of it, but like something like Meta's doing,
They
where
won't.
you
I
go into
mean,
the you go into the store and they've got it tiered. It's
they
like
won't do it. They
new
won't do it.
releases,
They
bestsellers,
won't
genres.
do it. They
I
won't do it.
know,
Because they want you to make sure that that God of War Ragnarok is out. It's just that simple. That's still their bread and butter, and they will not let that go.
but you know what? They could do that in different ways. I feel like even if they had like
They
a
could.
store
They
with
won't.
ads, I know they won't. But you want to talk about needs? Sony needs to treat their PSVR crowd like that's all they give a fuck about. Because guess what? That's all a lot of them give a fuck about.
I
They
think
oh,
well, no, I disagree because that's why they're pushing the little hybrid thing, or
I
they're
know.
pushing.
Well, because they're trying to
But
get the masses. But
fine.
once you're in,
Look, as a
and you
guy who only plays VR games, like like you're speaking to me, and I'm telling you that it's not going to work like that. Not at Sony's end. They it just won't.
but
They'll,
but this is why I
it's a
started
want.
off with
This isn't a need. This is a
no. This is
Shug
a
want.
this
This is a
no.
want.
This is a
I'm entitled. I'm Christopher Shug.
Okay, fuck you. But this is why I started off this conversation with Sony. Would they look at like what they did before as a success? Because they did a lot of things wrong. And I was a huge PSVR fanboy. But it was very frustrating to be a huge PSVR guy at that time because it was like, God damn it, Sony. Damn it. Why aren't you doing this? And one of those big things was not properly curating a store that promoted the best that the PSVR had to get people onto the best games. And that
Yeah.
was a problem. That's why we had to do so much work as the early YouTubers, because there was just a lot of people just weren't getting the right information of the games they should be playing.
Hmm.
They heard people like, "Oh, I played this." I'm like, "You need to play more games, man." And now a lot of that's Sony's fault, and the fact that like now, if they don't change shit up, it's like in the store as a PSVR little icon thingy. Like, oh my god, they could just really push it. You jump into a PSVR store, and there's all the different tiers. There's demos. There's a different app section. Like they need to celebrate it and make it like when you're in VR, you're in a VR world. I know what you're saying.
I'm just gonna shut up because every time I talk, it just fuels your fire. So, are you done? Whenever you're done talking, just let me know.
I can't promise I'm done, but continue.
I'll just blast these kind of they're middles of wants and needs. 'Cause I'm not sure. Like I don't care about hand tracking. I've yet to use an app or a quest game with hand tracking where I was like, this is better. I have yet to see that. That being said, there is more and more demand for hand tracking, and on the same token, pass through VR apps. I think especially with the Quest Pro, it's not going to like move headsets, not really, but I think it's going to really show off just because of the display of the pass through cameras and having the like hand interaction with all those like mixed reality apps that are coming out for the Quest Pro. I think we're going to see a lot of videos surrounding that kind of stuff. And there are actually some cool hand tracking apps. So you can learn how to play a piano, like it overlays the piano keys like on like a piano in front of you, and you can learn how to play piano. There's a few others as well. I just think there's a future in that right now Sony's not embracing. They haven't said anything about any kind of pass through other than to map your area. And I think it's fine now, but I think as the years go on, I think we're gonna start seeing some killer apps is a bit of an extreme term, but
Maybe,
we're going to
but
see some apps that do utilize that Sony will be missing out on if they don't.
maybe, but I do think if especially and they made this very clear with the PS1, this starts to trickle down into my conversation about social apps, but Sony, I think, still is like they're the VR for gamers. I think that's going to be like Meta's obviously got a lot of interest outside of gaming. In fact, I would be surprised if gaming's not even their main interest.
Yeah. No,
Not
I'm not saying it's like pressing.
Whereas
It really
Sony
is. It's not
Sony
pressing.
wa Sony and and it's tethered, right? So the idea of, "Oh, you can totally learn to play piano as long as you can get your PS5, buy your piano."
Not the best example, but my
No,
point.
but it's a good example because it's an awesome example, of the benefits of augmented reality to the average person.
Demio is a way better example. And that is coming to PSVR 2. Obviously with the new, you can see that you can play Demio on the 25th. You can play it on the Quest 2 with pass through. I mean, the Quest 2 pass through is not great by any stretch. Everything's gray scale and looks like, I don't want to call it garbage, but it doesn't look great. Whereas the footage on the Quest Pro, they're literally placing the Demio board table on like their countertop, and it looks freaking awesome. It looks really cool. And so that'll be a feature that I guess even the Quest 2 has, the Quest Pro has, and a feature that the PlayStation 2 VR version won't have. And it's not going to determine whether you buy or not buy the game for the Sony, but it's like Xbox getting DLC for a game 6 months earlier than Sony. It's that little sting where it's just like, well, it can't do that. And like I say, it's minor now, but I think as the years move on, I'm talking years, like 2025, 6, 7. I could see this being a bigger deal than it is right now. And I could be wrong. Maybe it'll just go, the way of, Microsoft mixed reality in general. But it's in my head. Like I don't care about it right now, but I think there's potential for that I might.
And I mean, and that's another episode. There's a lot of conversation around AR versus VR and the I don't know, the long-term value of each, and which is going to actually take the lead. I think I'm similar to you in the fact that augmented reality mm, is neat to me, but there's not a lot that is really interesting to me. Like,
Yep.
let's talk about like Demio, for example. I don't want to play Demio on my coffee table. Like, I just don't. I just don't care. I want to play. I want to play in
But
their
that's
world.
the Dungeons and Dragons experience. And now, I guess also in Demio, which I didn't mention, is the fact you can also have, you also have the avatars around there as well. So all the avatars are also sitting around your table. Like there is like a very
It's
kind
neat.
of cool. It's
It's
yeah, for
neat.
sure.
It's
Yeah,
neat. I just don't care. Like, not really. Like, not
that's
like
because your house is a dirty mess.
fuck you. You have a kid, and like you live in a zoo. My house is spotless. Anyway, just attack me. Um,
So on the same token, I just want to mention also hand tracking. It's the exact same thing.
which is where I thought you were
Yeah,
going with.
that's why I started with it. And then kind of went to mixed reality. Same thing. I think it's something that Sony shouldn't ignore. But hopefully there's maybe plans down the line if assuming there is interest in that. But yeah, there just to kill that.
Would know. I mean, I'd be curious to know how many people, and if you in chat can chime in, how many people give a shit about hand tracking like right now? Because
No,
I
it
mean
sucks
the
now.
yeah, I mean, does it? I don't
It
know if
sucks
you.
now. It sucks now.
It works okay now. It's pretty
Does
good now, but it's still far as like where it really matters. Like, I don't know.
you can't play
Demio
games with it yet. I mean, other
Demio
than
makes a
like
lot of
that.
sense.
Yeah.
Demio, like being able to like reach in and pick and move is kind of cool. But I'm lazy. I like having the pointer and just being like, I don't even have to reach on the table.
No, I agree.
um, I mean, people are gonna walk in the room and seeing you playing Demio with like hand track, and they're gonna wonder what you're doing when you're sitting here going like this.
You don't. No one does that in Demio except you, though. That's the problem. In fact, I question whether you're playing Demio now that I think about it. Um,
Why are your dice always on your lap? Shut up.
right, right. So yeah, and then I mean, I don't want to. These are all bigger topics and stuff we talked about before, but I mean, a want obviously is PCVR support, and I don't want to get into crazy details about this. It won't be out of the box at launch with Sony backing that. More than likely, it'll be modders that get a hold of it and do figure something else out. But I really hope down the line, ideally within the first year, just to push headsets next Christmas. If they just said, look, it works for with your PC, and I'm not sure how to make that plan work, but just let me use it. Like if I use it as my only console headset and my only PC headset, I don't know where Sony loses, other than I guess in app revenue from Steam games. But once again, if it's not available in the Sony
Mm,
library, but if it's not available in the Sony library in the first place, like all this old stuff, then I think it does less harm and still gets more headsets in households. And then
it's a
if
tough
you
one. Yeah,
but if
this
you
brings up a
but
really good point though of app revenue.
But if they pack in, if they do come out of the gate with all these big exclusives and do make like this PSVR 2 only games and experiences that, warrant that, to me, they can balance it out enough where like Sony is the biggest selling headset and the most used headset on Steam. That'd be a pretty cool, advertising thing. And I don't think it hurt. I think it helps them more than it hurts them, in my opinion. But in no way am I an expert on this kind of stuff.
No, but I mean, if you look at the Microsoft, the Xbox approach to gaming is they don't care. Like it's as far as they seem to. Well, I mean, I guess it's the exact opposite. All they care about is store revenue. They don't
Mhm.
care. They don't care about hardware. They don't like it's just like wherever they can get Xbox Game Pass, is where it's going really, or an Xbox, just Xbox, um, at all. That brand, L- they don't like. I mean, I'd heard them trying to get it over on Switch, which ended up in like similar conflicts of interest of like where does that where do they start like eating into like Nintendo's library? So I mean, I
Mhm.
was never sure how that was going to work. I think that the truth of it is then we've talked about this before is that the PC is going to modders are going to be all over that PSVR 2 headset, and
God, I hope so, man. I
Sony
hope
may not
so.
have a choice.
I hope that's the case. I hope they get strong armed into like making. I really do. I mean, It doesn't. The fact it's only one USB-C cable just kind of tells me it'll happen way sooner than later, whether Sony wants to or not. And
Oh
then
man, it's gonna be
once
so
that's out of the bag, man, there's no putting it back, in my
especially if it's
personal opinion.
good. Like
Yeah.
like it's like, hey Sony, the modders made a better home screen than yours.
Oh, for sure. Be awesome. Okay, I've got one more point that's not directly related to games, and then
Yeah,
we can just talk about games.
maybe.
Cool.
We'll see.
Well, we're on a
Maybe I
time
got more
crunch a little
maybe I
bit.
got fuck time.
Well, I do.
I know, fam.
Anyways, we have a bit of time still. So the last thing I wanted to say very quickly would be that the ease of use in streaming VR directly from the PSVR headset or from the PS5. They've already confirmed that you can use the PS5 camera to actually stream your you like overlay you on top of your VR stream.
Yep.
So as long as everything is seamless and basically just hits like you just hit the stream button and it goes and it's easy and anyone can do it. I mean, obviously there'll be a flood of idiots who are just like streaming everything, but there's still
All matter.
yeah, like the cream of the crop will rise to the top. That's right.
Yep.
And it's only more exposure, even from channels that typically don't do VR. If it's so easy to stream, to do that, and it's easy to use. One USB, you're not fighting with the PSVR like the PSVR one. I just think it'll be a lot of exposure, especially that first year. And it depends on what Sony does in that first year, whether that interest stays or wanes. Really.
I think you nailed it. And I think hopefully they do something like Discord has and such where you can put a virtual background up too. Um, or just have it so that it automatically tries to cut your background out and have you. I
I
think
assume they'll do that. The
yeah,
automatic. I tried that with not streaming in VR when I messed with the camera when I first got the PS5 and it worked decent. So
I think you're dead on because the Quest is always like that's one thing where it doesn't do a good job of. It's a shit streamer, it's a shit game recording device, and it's not their fault because there's so much they're trying to do with this like standalone device as it is. Whatever. I mean, the fact that they also tried to push it so that you could only really stream to Facebook didn't really help. But the
yeah.
fact is that that is somewhere where Sony can absolutely kick ass and just like that also kind of answers the question that the problem that I had before was how does Sony better convince people that this is awesome without getting a headset on their head, and this is how you do it. You
Mhm.
get you get people streaming the shit out of it, having a blast with it.
Yep.
And right now, VR streaming, as far like proper VR streaming, like you and I both started this way, and this idea of we just hit. It's the reason we have
Oh, and
channels.
forgot. Yeah, don't stream the fisheye for the love of God. Stream the social screen. I should have like they don't stream the fisheye for the
Yeah,
love of God.
I don't think that'll be an issue since they did it right to start with. I mean, Sony was way ahead of the game with the social screen in VR. It was what allowed me to like sell it to have friends over. It's still an issue with the Quest because it's just like shitty to try to get it to cast to something and then not
Yeah,
have
it's
lag in it.
tough.
You
It's
know,
tough.
it's just crap, right? And the PC's better, but it's like everybody come down into my basement. um it's just Sony did such a good job already of sharing VR and even having some apps that took advantage of the social screen that allowed multiplayer with people on the couch and the VR. They need to do
Hmm.
more of that, more of what that was one thing Sony did so well was compared to anyone else was making VR just like more of a living room experience
Yeah.
and just like people coming in and just wanting to play and the fact that now you're not going to have to be like, okay, stand still, okay, hold that button, okay, now do this, oh, you're getting a grid, okay, take a few steps back, okay, wait, hang on, you're wrapped in the cord, okay, okay, let me move you over here, okay, hang on, just let me move that camera, okay, now hold the pause button, the options button again, did it reset? No, it didn't. Okay, give me the headset.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We've all been there.
It's still not going to be perfect, but the fact is that Sony did that better than most, even with what they had to work with. And I think you nailed it with the idea of they just need to keep doing what they did and take it to the next level. What I was going to say is so many people started with just like hitting broadcast, and you just saw it from their view, that 720p, you know, view, and it's like,
And it's 720p Sony PSVR resolution. Like I mean, like it's 720p plus whatever's
yeah.
going on in the headset.
So
It was
if so if to the mass if the masses now can like have themselves on camera playing VR and see people could see them playing VR and see their heads, and it's like HD quality, like proper HD quality, and it just could and just flood the market with that. Like when Resident Evil Village comes out in VR, it's going to be everywhere.
Yeah.
People
Oh
losing
yeah.
their shit, right? It's
Oh
going to be
yeah.
awesome. But that's how you do it.
Yep.
I agree with that. That's a really good. That's a really good feature that I did not down.
Speaking of games, Chris, another good segue right there with Resident Evil. But I'm gonna go with the I'm segueing. We're the launch. I mean, it comes down to they've already confirmed over 20 titles at launch available. And I've been playing the same 7 they've announced officially on through Sony. Demeo. Not to say these are launch titles, but Demeo, Horizon, Firewall, Saints and Sinners, No Man's Sky. I'm missing another one. Firewall. If I didn't say, I just Firewall. It doesn't matter. I mean, but it doesn't matter. My point is, the launch can't just be Horizon, which is confirmed to be a launch game, and 19 other lesser games. Like Resident Evil 8, I'm assuming is a launch game that hasn't been confirmed. That's a big one. They need, in my opinion, they need a substantial number of big games. They don't need like 3. They need like 10. They need to like kind of overwhelm everyone at launch, because so then like there is a lot to get through. When there is, Pop 1, like if they got Pop 1 as a launch game, it's not like it's not Call of Duty obviously, but it's a big deal to VR users.
And it's social. It's a lot of things in one. And I don't know if you've been in Pop 1 recently, but
no.
it's getting. I mean, like there is lots of stuff outside of Battle Royale now, like
It's added sandbox.
solo play bots, and the sandbox that they're adding. But I mean, just like options is playing in duos, playing privates, playing single play. Just very, very. There's a lot of ways to play, and it's not just a straight up battle royale. But and I had that down. It's like this little handful of like must play VR: Stormland, Lone Echo, Asgard's Wrath, the Climb series, Pop 1, Onward, all
See,
owned by Meta.
that
All owned by Meta.
And even if they got a hold of a few of those, if they are making friends with Meta, that's not good enough. When I say like AAA VR games, I mean Sony exclusive AAA VR games.
I
should have made that clear.
I get that, but when you mentioned,
and I said Pop 1, which is totally counters that
right?
point. Yeah, I know, right? I'm on the fly, I can't think of examples, but let's just say like I don't know, SOCOM VR. They bring back the SOCOM franchise, dude. I mean, right? That's what I'm saying, right? I mean, people there's demand for that. But that's what Sony needs to do.
Filter,
right? Well, I've heard rumors that they're trying to reduce or reinvigorate that franchise. But I mean, my point though is that there's Sony has a plethora of games they can look back that they can pull like big fat Killzone, right? I mean, what if they announced BioShock VR as an exclusive VR title? Like, there's
not
that's
what. But
I know it's not theirs, but that's why I said exclusive. That's why I said if they get the rights exclusively, BioShock exclusively on Sony PSVR 2, or the BioShock trilogy. And I know that's just like lofty as all hell, but
not really. I mean,
in VR,
yeah, but they've been remastered, so it's not like they haven't been touched. I can't. Yeah, I mean, BioShock's like one of those ones, right, that just keeps coming up over and over and over with everybody.
I would love to be overwhelmed at launch. I would love to be like, I can't possibly play No Man's Sky and the BioShock trilogy and Call of Duty, the whole campaign in VR, and I would love to sit there and have all these AAA VR experiences that actually look and feel AAA. Like that to me would be mind blowing. Not the 3 games and then we get Demeo. No offense to Demeo. The Star Wars Tales from Galaxy's Edge. They're great games. They're fantastic games. But they're already games that exist on other platforms, and they don't necessarily show off the strengths of VR and the power of the PS5. At least I don't think they do. I mean, unless the Tales surprises us. I know it's like the deluxe edition or like the enhanced edition, and it did look pretty in the trailer. But I played the core game. You can only you can pretty it up as much as you want, but the game itself is still kind of shallow a little bit. I know you definitely think it is, but yeah, my point still stands. I want 10 out of those 20 games. I want 10 of those games to be like 8 to 20 hour AAA games. Resident Evil 8 is, I guess, the best example of those. Just pick your franchise and go.
So the way I look at it is there's three tiers of games um, that Sony needs to focus on, and I think that they all have a place. The first tier would be like prior VR titles that were not on PSVR one, like Pinnacle games, right?
Yep.
Mainly PC games with some Quest games too. Unfortunately, if they're only on Quest, chances are they're exclusives. But I would say like key games like like I guess right off the top of my head would be like Blade and Sorcery, Half Life Alex, um, Boneworks slash Bone Lab. I would say actually I think Boneworks. To be honest with you, I think
They teased that
it's the
Boneworks is
better of the
coming.
two. I think ultimately, or something or a Bone something PSVR two exclusive. Something designed to really capitalize on that. Things like um, Contractors, Elite Dangerous. These are games that like PSVR owners and VR owners that have not had access to a high end PC have dreamed about
Mm-hmm.
playing. Those that obviously Alex being that big one. So there's yeah,
Alex as
like
a launch title would be fantastic.
I mean, for the love of God, just get it as a launch title because I don't want to hear about it because
I
it's going to come up in every single person's. Oh no, Alex, where's Alex? We need Alex. Um, Decepticons, says that's what they need to do. Uh, I'm of two minds of that Decepticon. I don't think it's Ryan obviously agrees with you. I don't think Dreams sold as well as Media Molecule wanted it to. We talked about that in the last podcast. I don't know if it's as big as they wanted it to be. I think the options are endless there. Yeah, I mean it would be amazing, but one could argue that if say Sony really embraces VR chat, then and Neos for that matter, if you are looking at it from a VR standpoint, Dreams starts to matter a lot less. Um,
Well, and Dreams needs multiplayer. Dreams needs more than like there is things that Dreams needs to actually be better because giving it the PS5 version doesn't change some of its core problems. The fact that like we mentioned before, you can't just share dreams and edit them. There's quite the process behind that. No multiplayer. It's not perfect. I mean, even obviously aim support, move support, that would all go the wayside. But I mean, I would love to. How is Dreams going to handle well, they actually showed the video, didn't they, of the PS5, PSVR 2 controllers working in Dreams, I think. They said it's like an easy switch or something. Doesn't
this
matter. I'm
it's
rambling.
just it's just that VR chat, like if you go and I would say that people who are like love Dreams, if you have experienced VR chat and you see some of the crazy shit
And
that
there's some
people are doing.
crazy shit in there. It's nuts.
I remember the first time I was taken in there, they're like, yeah, this is like basically like there's many rooms of people who have like are like almost like professional like avatar costume makers, and they just took me into like one of these rooms, and it was like, oh, do you like Alien and Predator shit? And it was like all these different Predator costumes, and I like put one on. I was like, I was the freaking Predator. I had like claws and invisibility, and I had rocket launchers on my shoulders. Um, it's just like, damn. I think that I'm just saying that I think that people who really want Dreams when they have other options, it will become less of a thing. That being said, Dreams is insane and it's super powerful. And I don't think it was leveraged as properly as it could have been because, like, even from a sound and music creation, I would love to see Dreams get the PS5 treatment and get it like properly in there. I'm
That would
just
be
saying,
awesome.
I don't know if it makes financial sense for Media Molecule. That's the but anyways, back to my three tiers of games. There's the key, let's call them like key VR games, the triple A VR games that have already existed and and people just would die to have. Again, like like Alex, Blade and Sorcery, things like that. And then, like I said, like Stormland, Lone Echo, Asgard's Wrath, Onward, Pop One, The Climb. Like it's like fuck, and they're all locked down by media or by Meta, possibly. That sucks for PSVR guys. It starts to make it where it's like, damn it, I have to have another headset as well. Um, it's why I like not being locked down. But still, I'd love to see those games just come into the console world and just take the consoles by storm. Sony would it would be so crazy for them not to capitalize on that. So
Mhm.
that's one tier. Second tier is, and this is another episode I want to get into, is what PSVR 1 remasters are worth bringing over especially around that like launch and first year, like say the first holiday season. I don't want to get into that list because that's a different ball of worms altogether. But like
Ball
ball
of
of
worms.
worms,
Ball of worms.
I'm like, I just like two metaphors, just put them together. Okay, that happened. But you know what I'm saying, right? Right? Like there's
Yeah.
some like Wipeout, for example. We're getting Firewall, but like Astrobot. You
I
know,
just read today that apparently there's rumors that Wipeout's working on a hybrid version for
fu-
PSVR. I mean, there's
that's fuck yeah.
pure
But
rumor
that's what
on
I'm
that one.
saying, right? But that's what I'm.
Yeah.
There's some insane games over on the PSVR that I don't really want to go back and put on my old PSVR headset to play.
No, no, I definitely, I'd be shocked if I covered a single PSVR 1 game once PSVR 2
And I
drops,
want
assuming
them,
there is one.
and I want them, but I want them fully remastered. I don't want them to just make it.
Yeah, for the
Um,
ones that matter, for sure. I mean, like there's the dream of them releasing PS5 versions. Let's just say they released a PS5 version of Astrobot, but if you own the PS4 version, you get a free upgrade. That to me would be the best way to
or
introduce the
even
game.
$10, something
No,
like that. I'm
but
just
but
saying,
but I
whatever.
think with the adoption of new PSVR headsets, obviously, if you didn't own Astrobot before, then you could buy the PS5 version and you're good to go.
Well, you know, what'd be
But
cool is if they did something like they did with the PS5, where new PSVR owners, you buy your headset and there's like a collection of 20 classics that have been remastered, say Sony classics that they could do.
that's lofty.
That's what they did with the PS5.
That's different. They don't care about VR users as much.
Well, I'm just saying, I could see them doing something like that, even if it was five. Like I'm just saying, there's a handful of classic PSVR games remastered for PSVR 2. Um, that's one category. And then the third category of games that I think Sony really needs to focus on, and this is probably the big one, is actual new shit. Whether that be PSVR 2 like only VR games or what they call their hybrid games. Like with Sony's commitment to VR and some of the rumors we've heard, I will be shocked if God of War Ragnarok not have a hybrid PSVR 2 version.
That would be cool.
I
I
will
mean,
be
we know there was
shocked if
they
they
know they
don't do
tried to
that.
do it for the last God of War. I mean, you can
Did
find
they?
the footage. Yeah, it was scrapped, but they had actually
Did
like
they?
did it.
Because I heard that they
They
were
did
just
it.
working on a God of War VR game.
No, it was maybe it was a. Now you're confusing me, but I'm pretty sure there was they tried to do or they messed around with the God of War in VR and just determined that they couldn't do it. It was basically whoever's story is right here, the end result's the same. They basically said this does not work and they scrapped it. So whether it was an experience or a full-on game or that game in VR, I don't recall exactly. But either way, they were like, nope, nope. But there was they definitely tried something, and they just said no.
Okay, well, at one point I did hear that there was a team working on a side God of War VR thingy,
And
and
that
I
could
mean,
be it.
and of course, like I mean, the when you just initially think of it, the idea of like chucking your shield and having it coming back and just like bashing the shit out of guys with your weapons, all of that sounds amazing. I want to be able to kill the little kid, so I don't have to have him walk along next to me. But I digress. It's my companion rage coming out, but I just that's an example. Sony's actually got a lot. They don't necessarily have nearly as many exclusives on their like on the horizon as they normally do. But with them pushing, really wanting to push hybrid VR titles, they have to lead by example.
Yep. Oh, totally.
So,
I
like
totally
I
agree with
said,
that.
I'll be stunned if Ragnarok is not in some shape or even if it is just a like a VR third person view.
I would be much less stunned, but I'm hoping you're right that it is
Well,
heavier.
I feel I'm stunned because you can't say that you're going to do this and that you're pushing people to do this and then not do it with your biggest exclusive that's coming out only, like less than 4 months from probably the launch of your headset. I don't
I
expect
hope
them
you're
to
right.
mention it anytime soon.
Yeah.
Like Gran Turismo 7. Like if that's not in VR, I'm not buying one.
You will. Um,
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, and I guess I kind of just little notes here. We kind of already touched on these things, but like bringing over, I have classic VR games, which you kind of already touched on as far as like what tier two was that tier two or one? I forget your tiers
That was
already.
tier 3.
Ah, it
No,
doesn't
that was
matter.
tier 2. It doesn't
You
matter.
don't know either. It doesn't
There's
matter.
3 tiers.
But obviously bringing in those popular games will be a big deal. The last thing you want to do. I mean, no offense, but like I'm sure Sony is gonna pay an arm and a leg, whether it's in ports or anything else, for Beat Saber to come to PSVR 2. Because I think PSVR 2 not having Beat Saber is big because Beat Saber is still huge. It's still the top selling game on friggin'
Unless Meta
PSVR.
decides to be a cockblock.
But I'm just saying these guys. There's you see, for all we know, they got Iron Man VR for Beat Saber. Like we don't know these things, but they thank Sony. They thank Sony in the meta thing for Iron Man VR. So to me, like I said, there's a trade there. Regardless, I mean that'll happen over time anyways. And obviously I want the quality stuff. I don't want any of that garbage from last gen to come over to this one. And also after the release, I don't want there to be big lulls in games where it's like every week is 3 games that are complete throwaway garbage while we wait for the next Resident Evil whatever or the next Skyrim or the next big game. I need at least one huge game a month, and I mean huge, like
Yeah.
huge in as far as VR goes. Like, there's like a huge asterisk, but like a 10 to 20 hour campaign.
Oh,
with
that's it, eh?
Well, that's how low. I see. You make fun of me. No, but I mean, but there should be. But honestly, that's not too much to expect. I mean, maybe the first year is a bit low. Obviously that would depend on sales, I guess. Obviously, but I don't want to see what we saw with PS4 or PSVR, where every week was just a crapshoot of indie titles and a crapshoot of indie titles, and then and every now and then you got a diamond in the rough, but it was still like a good indie game where you could forgive its budget. Corks. Let's defend Corks here, Chris. I mean, it's not pretty. It's definitely not a pretty looking game. But it did do what it needed to do for gameplay wise. I don't want those. I don't want us to be excusing indie titles because we're just getting that again, and we're just like so sick of the trash that when we get something that's remotely decent, we're just like, oh, thank God it's got like decent gameplay. No, I want just like solid visuals, good gameplay, and just like, yep, I my next 10 hours are locked down. I'm not.
Well, no, I mean, so you want them to almost kind of like curate the store even more than say Meta did.
Oh
Like
God, yes. I mean, I don't.
one of the reasons that like side quest even became a thing was because of how strict Meta was becoming as far as what games could come out.
Yeah.
And I thought that for the most part that was a good idea.
Like I said, there's gray area here for sure. I'm not saying just cut off all indies. I'm just saying, yeah, just be selective and just at least in the beginning. I mean, I don't know. It's just to
I
me.
agree. I agree. I mean, we talked about this. There's a really big. I'm really concerned about, especially if Sony's not going to do their due diligence and come up with a proper VR store slash like space. Is that like if you're not going to curate your store, then you like as far as like what you see and make it possible for people to find the good shit, then then you've got to like start to limit the crap that hits the store. But I don't know. That's a tough one. I don't really know. Sony doesn't seem to like necessarily lock that down. That's just not the way they roll. Um, but I know what you're saying. I don't know. It's a combination of I don't necessarily really care that much if Sony lets like crap into the store and just lets it free for all. It's just they need to make sure there's enough good stuff and that is what their people are seeing.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I don't
And
want to sit
that
there and
and
say like, no indies allowed. That's not fair at all. I mean, the indies built this generation of VR
indies are still carrying
for sure, for sure, for sure, for sure.
like
Basically, I don't want garbage. It's bottom line. I don't want. I just don't want throwaway. I always say throw anything as a game, which isn't totally fair because it's not terrible, but like just these like any kind of like generic zombie
no,
shooter or wave
I
shooter. I
agree.
just it's
The way I look at this is that I feel like that VR, especially when it comes to say like console, is in very much still its infancy stage in the fact that everybody's you have to think that everybody's first experience, like, everybody's experience in VR could be their first experience on, like, when they say go out and they buy a PSVR 2, or they go and they play their friend's PSVR 2. I don't want there to be a very high chance that someone's first experience is going to be Turkey Hunter 2.
I imagine that won't be the case at launch. My worry is, like I said, a year down
No,
the
but
road
even
when
moving
Turkey
on,
Hunter 2 is in VR.
but there will be, how many times have we seen over the years of people in, like, the PSVR groups on Facebook talk about the fact that they played such and such a game and they weren't really impressed. It's like, yeah, well, no shit. Who told you
Yeah.
to play that? Because what do people normally do? They buy, a lot of people, they buy, especially one, like, the headset's been out for a while. They buy one. What do? They maybe get the pack-in games, and then they go buy the cheapest games they can find.
Yeah.
They go buy the games on sale. And it's like, I just want to make sure that people have their mind blown.
That's why you come to our channel where we cover the latest and greatest in PSVR
Oh
games.
god. And for only 4 equal payments of $4.99. um,
uh,
but that's a really good, it's a really good thing to bring up, and it's going to be a real challenge that Sony has in that first year, especially. There's going to be a lot of eyes on them to go, is it better?
mhm. Well,
Because like,
the one thing I hope is, assuming this has been delayed and assuming that their plans were for it to be released this year and it's been pushed back, I'm really hoping that does benefit the launch titles or the launch window titles in regards to, things that may,
that's
things
fine.
happen, right? In game devs, like games get delayed, 6 months, 8 months, a year, 2 years. So hopefully this window, even if it's just a 6 month window from what they originally had planned, hopefully that 6 month window allows for developers who maybe wouldn't have made the October 2022 window to make the Q1, Q2 2023, and we see a lot more games than we might have had it released this year. Maybe.
Well, some mystery gamer talks about how he thinks Sony has one shot at this, and if they botch it, he worries about VR on PlayStation. Definitely. Now, one shot, I think they got a year. I mean, that's why I kind of picked the year. I think that the launch is important, but it's going to be execution down. It's going to be like
For sure.
into that
Yeah.
first holiday season. But there are going to be a lot of eyes on it. What I worry about is if Sony drops the ball on this, like, they just shit the bed, and it just isn't, it doesn't take off. They just don't nail the landing. I worry about just high end VR in general.
I don't think it'll happen. I think Meta is carrying VR enough for everybody, just with their inundation with like it does give Sony some breathing room where they can kind of like maybe trip and fall a little bit, as long as they don't like totally fall off a cliff. Is they can. I think even if they make any kind of small mistakes, they can right that ship because Meta is doing. They're still doing all the heavy lifting as far as VR goes, and it's a buffer. Meta is a buffer for Sony to make some more mistakes. Hopefully they don't. But
Well, but I think Meta's starting to,
oh yeah,
I wouldn't say stumble. They're starting to become less exciting right now.
for
The
sure. And obviously the
Pro is
quest.
one thing,
Yeah,
but it's not. That's not for gamers.
no, but the Pico's coming out strong right now over in Europe, and hopefully they come to America this year or North America rather. But with the Pico being competition and with PSVR 2 being competition, with hopefully that going into PCVR getting some life breathed back into it, like Meta might be looking, like I assume they're gonna really be like they're gonna really push the standalone really hard because they can't compete with the offerings from PC
That's
and
their thing.
PSVR.
Well, they don't even have. I mean, they
Yeah.
don't have to compete. They're crushing it.
But
And
they
that's
will. But they will have to compete in the coming year or years with other headsets and console PCVR again. Like right now, they don't have to compete with them. There's just
well,
no.
that's what
There's
his console. Yeah, they're gonna have to compete against high end VR.
yeah,
Because right now they've been trying to get that high end VR in some shape or form onto their standalone headset, and that's always going to be a draw. But it's like for people who want to see something like right there on the screen there, like for Horizons, if you want to see that level of gameplay quality or that level of visual quality, that ain't happening on standalone VR for the foreseeable future.
right.
Like I was telling Ryan that I was actually listening to a podcast with oh my gosh, I was talking to Jason actually about the VR chat channel. Um Carmichael. Um and over at
Carmack? You talking about Carmack?
Carmack. Thank you,
There we
Carmack.
go.
the
John Carmack.
John Carmack. There we go.
There you go.
That's words. Over at and it was a podcast from 2 years ago, but it was interesting hearing him talk about VR and how excited like he is all in, right? It's so cool to hear about a guy who created Doom and Quake and is now at the forefront of VR. Like it's like he's not just like resting on his laurels. He's not just like stuck as a retro gamer. It's like whatever is exciting in the gaming industry. That's where he's at, right?
Mm.
And one of the things he was talking about was that standalone, like small tech, whether it be phones or whether it be he was talking about the Quest because the Quest is out at that point, is quickly going to run into a bit of a wall in the fact that um, microchips are getting about as small as they can get. He's like, there's a couple more evolutions of it. And then, unless the tech changes drastically, they're kind of going to hit a bit of a wall where it can't get any smaller. And he's like, because the
And they make
wires,
the headsets bigger.
well, that's the thing. He's like, the wires can't get any smaller because then atoms start jumping out of wires. And he's like, so standalone is going to hit a bit of a wall, I think, unless things really change where they're if they want to keep their form factor, which is smaller and more comfortable, which is what a lot of people want, they're gonna hit a bit of a wall unless they start using, which is we all know where it's gonna go, is cloud computing. That's
Yeah.
how they start to compete. We're not there yet. Not because people just don't have the Wi-Fi connections en masse. Like until Wi-Fi 6 is like the absolute like commonplace, I don't see that happening. But anyway,
Mm.
I digress to that.
I got
And
nothing else. I've run out of points.
oh,
I've got all my talking points.
I got points for days. um, I think that I don't even know where I was going to go.
Look,
People.
I mean, we can, I mean, I'm going to start wrapping this up here, but like Sony has like the balls in their court in regards to like everything is on them. They have they make it. They can make all the right decisions or all the wrong decisions, and hopefully they've learned over the last 5 years what to do, what not to do, at least in regards to promotion and content and UI stuff and all. Obviously they haven't learned all their lessons just yet, I guess, but hopefully they've learned enough where coming out of the gate and this whole first year of the 2023, the year of PSVR 2 isn't going to be a bumpy ride. It's going to be just smooth sailing. Everyone gets what they want. These hybrid games, we get these hybrid things that actually are worth looking into. They're not just like some kind of tacked on mode. If they do everything right, it's guaranteed to be the most impressive VR headset we've ever had. If they do everything right, and if they do everything wrong, and it's just another VR headset, that's not good.
So here's the thing. Here's my crystal ball. When Sony starts to really announce things like price, release date, games, and people are starting to like, and like it really starts to become something that like people are like holding in like videos and going like, so this is I've tried this thing like and like you're massive influencers, and it starts to become like reality. People are going to bitch about the price. It's inevitable. They're going to bitch about this. It's not going to be cheap. People are going to bitch about the price. They're going to bitch about lack of PS5 availability. Even though I think that that is less of an issue if you really want one. But the fact is, they're going to bitch about price. They're going to bitch about that. They're going to bitch about the wire. And the PSVR headset, as much as it's got some amazing tech in it, it's also just behind a little bit right out of the gate as far as like say the pass-through being black and white and stuff like because now the Pro's out. But again, price. All I'm saying is people are going to bitch right off the hop about certain things about the headset, and then it's going to be up to Sony to offset and blow away all those complaints. Like it's like, yeah, there's a wire, but look at these games you can play on it. If they don't have
Mm-hmm.
those games
Mm-hmm.
to go, this is why you have a wire. That'll become a much bigger issue to people.
I
And
agree.
that is my concern, is that Sony, in some ways, like, I don't know, saying that, like, they only have one shot at this. Well, he's not completely wrong in the fact that if they drop the ball at launch, it's going to be a lot of work to try to make that ground back up. Because you've got a lot of people out there who
All it takes is Uncharted in VR, and everyone's happy again.
well, it depends how they execute that. But all you know what I'm saying though? Like there's a lot of people out there, there's a lot of people out there who have their quests and they just they want so badly to bitch about that wire. Nah, wire, fuck it. No, I don't want it. Sony's got to have the games to offset that. They have to.
I hope they do.
And like and if it's like the PSVR 1, it's not enough to just have games. You've got to also then have like a bit of a roadmap too of like future games coming out. Because right now they've just got a handful of games that they're announcing, and some of them are old, like No Man's Sky. I don't think that's going to sell headsets.
No. We'll see. I mean, like I said, you're not wrong. I mean, it comes back to the point of like of a steady slate of big releases, and that same point. I mean, we need to see more. We need to see the announcement. I mean, we just need that official 100% launch date price announcement, and give us like 15 of those 20 games. Like, show us, wow us, Sony, wow us.
Exactly. That's what I'm excited for, is when they're really ready to announce the headset price, and especially when they show that price. When you show that price, you better not just have the same 5 games that you've been showing us. Like, it's time to blow it out. Like, what does that launch look like? I want to see fucking cars blasting off the screen. GT7 in VR. All the track, all the modes. I want to see like Half-Life Alex. I want them in VR giving the finger saying, "Yeah, it's coming." I'm
I
just
agree.
I'm excited. I'm excited.
So am I. Chris, we need to end this thing.
I can't believe neither of us said an aim control.
Oh, it was in my list actually, and then I actually erased it. It was aim controller, or at the very least gun stocks that work. It's gun stocks are fine. I do see the appeal of aim controller, but I also see the appeal of having 2 hands in VR. Honestly, firewall. We'll see how it goes. I mean, I don't want
You're right.
to.
It's an interesting point. People might push back against that without the aim controller. As much as 2 hands is awesome, I think I'm really looking for 2 hands. Again, that's one of those things where if Sony doesn't jump on it, ProTube and
Oh, for
VRS
sure,
will,
for sure.
and a bunch of 3D printing people on Etsy. I mean, different conversation, but I would really like to see Sony support a official, and not an aim controller.
I agree. I
I want
totally
an
agree.
official aim stock where they click where it supports the two-handed issues and it has some rumble in it.
That'd be cool.
Be awesome.
Chris, we're done.
You gotta go CPs.
No, but we're running late for it's just blah blah. Blah.
We're live, baby.
I
There's no
understand we're live.
limits. There's no limits.
I have limits. I have limits.
Okay, fine. Guys, thank you for those of you who've been tuning in since the beginning. We really appreciate it. Let us know what you think of these live episodes. If you didn't see the post, every Thursday, unless there's unforeseen circumstances, every Thursday at 7 o'clock.
9 p.m. Eastern time. You don't go Mountain time. No one lives here but us.
Did you
9
see-
p.m.
I
Eastern
put that in
Standard
the
Time.
post. I put that in the post. I was like 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. If you don't want to math,
There's
But,
our trailer for our time right there. Just us fighting over time zones.
nobody lives in Mountain Standard Time. Well, we do.
It's just us. But yeah, guys, we should open the episode up by saying this, but we'll close it down. Same time every Thursday. That's the plan, guys. So we've had the most viewers on this one, as like we had double our viewers from this episode to the last episode that I could see. And we plan on keeping it going. So every Thursday, 9 p.m. EST Eastern time, we will be here talking about VR.
Yes, we will. And we're gonna try to keep doing them live unless we have a guest that it just doesn't work for. But even if we have a guest and it's pre-recorded, we'll try to launch it the same.
We'll do our best.
Time. You know what, Mr. Gamer? Ryan's just allowed. He's leaning. Look at how he's leaning.
I could be. Doesn't matter.
But if we are louder, we're still working out the bugs. So you make sure you speak up and
I may have had the wrong mic selected when I did the audio check before the podcast started.
Yes, I saw somebody mention that to you. You're like, Ryan sounds tinny. I was like, that's just Ryan.
Yeah. Anyways, say goodbye. Aw.
No, I want to say, we were talking about timing and avoiding certain podcasts and what time we should launch. I've seen more than a few comments now from Australia people saying that we're like actually picking up their time.
It's like morning time for them, those guys there. My sister lives there, so it's like what, 10 o'clock there, something like that in the morning, something like that. I'm close.
Sweet. Well, we're happy to oblige.
Say goodbye, Chris.
Bye, Chris.